Skyrush is the absolutely incredible Intamin prototype winged hypercoaster located at Hersheypark in Hershey, Pennsylvania. And today I will be reviewing this amazing coaster. Now, I have done a review on Skyrush before, close to 2 years ago. However, that review is not very good. This one is still pretty new with doing coaster reviews, so I'll definitely probably redo some of my old reviews, like also with i305. But today I'll be redoing my Skyrush review. And I also revisited Hersheypark back this past August and got a couple more rides on it, so I thought I might as well do a re-review of it. Now, for the review, I'll be going through the layout first. I'll be going through 8 different categories, including intensity, airtime, pacing, drop, length and duration, smoothness, theming, and setting. Then I'll be giving it a final overall score out of 10. So let's get right into my review of Skyrush. Alright, so for the layout, you're going to come out of the station, go straight into this 200-foot tall cable lift, which is really awesome. It's really fast, it goes about 20 miles per hour. It's also really steep, so it's just really cool and gets you up there super quick. So when you level over the top, you get a nice view of the town of Hershey, Pennsylvania, and then you go down your insane 212-foot, 85-degree drop. Now, the drop starts out pretty normal. I mean, it definitely, gets some nice whip over, but about halfway down when you actually reach your max angle, there's this little bump in the drop, or like a little kink in it that sends you absolutely flying. It's easily my favorite drop of all time. It's just crazy. It's honestly scary how strong the airtime is here. It's just great. So then the level out, go straight into this bank turn, which is the laterals here are just insane. You get absolutely shoved into your seat on this right-hand bank turn. And then fly into your first ejector hill. This hill is just insane. It's -2 Gs. It's so sustained, so strong. It's just incredible. So you bank out there, got some really good laterals, and then into a left bank turn, very Intimidator 305-esque turn, super forceful and just insane. Then you'll go into another ejector hill, which is super strong, just like the first one. Not as sustained, but it's a super quick pop of airtime. It usually gives a nice head chopper as you go underneath, right underneath the first airtime hill, so that's really cool. There's another hill you kind of bank into and out of the hill, which is nice. Then you will do another right-hand bank turn, which is really intense, just like the previous ones. It's just super forceful and awesome, to a stangle dive, which is definitely really good. Definitely better if you're on the wing seats. You just get absolutely whipped to the side and get some insane laterals. It's definitely my favorite stangle dive experience. It's just really crazy. So then you'll go into mini stangle dive, which is alright, but definitely nothing compared to like the more major stangle dive. Then to a little right bank turn, which is pretty forceful. Then into a twisted airtime hill, which gives some insanely good laterals. This moment will definitely make you hang on. If nothing else in this ride will, even compared to some of the airtime hills, it's harder for me to put my hands up on this element just because how insane the laterals are. It's just awesome, especially on a wing seat. Then you'll go into your final main ejector hill, which this one is absolutely crazy. It just rips over it. With the speed you have and how small the hill is, it's just such crazy airtime. This is easily probably the most painful airtime on the ride. It's just insane. You'll do a little left-hand bank turn, and this last little section ride kind of meanders around, but it's not the end of the world. And it goes over some of the kind of kiddie rides in Founder's Way, which is kind of cool. And then you'll kind of come up and then pop up into the brake run. So that is the layout for Skyrush. Alright, so the first category is the intensity. And Skyrush is not all about the airtime. This ride is extremely forceful in terms of positive Gs and lateral Gs too. I couldn't find the exact G force online, but this thing has to pull at least 5 Gs. It is crazy forceful. Those insane bank turns just are absolutely insane. Not quite as intense as i305. I didn't quite black out on this, but it definitely did gray out on my last run, and I grayed out on the turn before the stangle dive. But yeah, those low to the ground turns are super intense. Some good laterals too on like the stangle dive, the twisted hill, and even the first turn after the drop is one of the best moments of laterals on really any coaster. Yeah, this ride's just super intense. It's just crazy forceful. Easily the second most intense coaster, that I've ridden behind i305. But yeah, it's just crazy forceful, so it's easily going to get a 10 out of 10 for the intensity.
Alright, so for the next category, we have the airtime. And Skyrush has, I'd say, 4 main moments of airtime, which would be the drop, the first 2 big camelbacks, and that smaller kind of bunny hill later in the ride. And I guess you do get a little bit of airtime on that, on the stangle dive. You kind of get a floater sort of sensation, but not really. You don't really get any airtime on the twisted hill either, but those 4 moments of airtime were absolutely insane. The drop is easily my favorite drop I've ever experienced, and it honestly feels unsafe. Even if you're stapled, you still get like standing airtime. It's actually terrifying. It's crazy. Then you have those first 2 major hills, which are just insane. Like, I mean, you're hitting like -2 Gs on this thing. You can definitely feel it. It's so strong. I mean, it feels like it's literally gonna chop your legs off with how strong the airtime is. I think that's the reason kind of why it hurts, just the airtime is so strong. Those hills are so powerful, and the first one's actually pretty sustained too, which is nice. I mean, most of the other mounts are quick pops, but that one's definitely really sustained and crazy strong. The second hill is really good. And that final airtime pop is just a crazy strong pop of airtime. You just get yanked over it with some really good speed. So the airtime on this ride is easily some of the strongest I've experienced. Honestly, I'd say this is the second strongest airtime I've experienced on a coaster behind Lightning Rod. Honestly, I think this has better airtime than El Toro. I guess, you know, a lot of people say El Toro's better airtime, but honestly, I think Skyrush has stronger airtime. Yeah, the airtime on this ride, while there might not be that many moments, it's just so strong, and it's just incredible, so it's easily going to get a 10 out of 10 for the airtime category. Alright, so next up we have the pacing. Skyrush is a really well-paced ride. I'd say up until, you know, the last couple elements, I mean, it really hauls. I'd say really until you kind of hit towards that final airtime hill. Even though, I mean, you do get some pretty good speed over it, but it's definitely a decrease from all the elements earlier in the ride. But up until then, I mean, you're flying, but definitely through, like, the last couple of turns, the last airtime hill, you're really not going quite as fast. So it's not, like, perfectly paced, but, I mean, it's still pretty well paced. I mean, it flies through, like, I'd say, like, 75% of the ride, so it's definitely going to get a really solid 8 out of 10 for the pacing category. Alright, so the next category we have is the drop category, and as I mentioned earlier, Skyrush has my favorite drop on any coaster, and that's for a reason. There's some other really great drops I've experienced, like on El Toro, Steel Vengeance, Lightning Rod, but this drop is absolutely mental. I haven't experienced this drop like in the front or towards the front. I've only ridden the back like couple rows. Imagine it's still really good towards the front, but in the back, it's absolutely mental. Even if you're stapled or don't have a lot of room, you get legit standing airtime. It's honestly kind of terrifying. It's just insane. That little bump or kink in the drop, you know, sends you absolutely flying. And even in the back, you get that amazing whip, just that initial pull over it, but that just one little moment in the drop sends you absolutely flying. And then leveling out, you go into that insane bank turn, which gets some great positives and laterals. Going from insane airtime to just being crushed into your seat is just honestly insane. You're really close to the ground in that part too, so the pull out from the drop's great. And you have some nice speed coming right off the cable lift instead of just a chain lift, so that's definitely adds to drop. There are definitely a lot of great drops out there, but this has to be one of the best drops in the world, and definitely the best drop I've experienced, so it's an easy 10 out of 10 for the drop category. Alright, so next up we have the length and duration. And Skyrush, well, it may be a shorter ride, it still packs quite a punch. I mean, it's definitely, for a hypercoaster especially, it's pretty short. It's only about 3,600 feet of track, and from drop to brakes, it's only about 40 seconds. There's actually a lot of like B&M loopers that have a longer track length than this. And usually hypers are definitely pretty long rides, so... But I think with what they had to work with, is definitely understandable why it's a shorter ride. What I say, I mean, it's not the end of the world. It's pretty comparable to like Phantom's Revenge in terms of, I'd say, length and duration. But definitely packs a lot in. Unfortunately, I'd say like probably 10 seconds of that duration is just kind of meandering around at the end of the ride. But I mean, it still packs a lot into like 35 to 40 seconds. But it definitely is a shorter ride, so it's gonna get a decent 7 out of 10 for the length and duration. Alright, so the next category is probably the most controversial part of Skyrush, I guess, besides the restraints, and that is the smoothness. Now, both my rides in 2017 and in 2020, I found this ride to be pretty smooth. It definitely
has a bit of a rattle, and it was a little bit more noticeable in 2020. But it really wasn't even bad. Like, even in the back row wing seats, it wasn't really super shaky or anything. It just had a little bit of a rattle. I really don't get why people say it's so bad. And some people even call it rough, which I really don't get. I mean, it's overall, for how intense it is, it's overall a pretty smooth ride. Probably why it's a bit rattly is probably the four crotch trains. I mean, I've heard the same thing with Hyperion, how it's a bit rattly, but like rides like I-305 really smooth. But that's probably the reason why. But overall, it's pretty smooth, and I really don't see why people complain about it being so bad. It's just a little bit of a rattle, so it's going to get a really solid 9 out of 10 for the smoothness. Alright, so the next category is going to be the theming, and Skyrush has pretty much no theming. I guess it's themed to kind of being like in the clouds and the sky and stuff, but there's literally no theming to this ride. Not during the ride, not on the trains, not in the station, not in the queue, not in the area around the ride. There's literally no theming, or any correlation really to the name. It's pretty typical with Hersheypark. Really, the only coasters that have theming are Laugh Track. And there's some decent theming on Candemonium, but for Hersheypark standards, it's pretty typical. So we're going to get the lowest possible score, which is a 1 out of 10 for the theming category. Alright, so the final category is going to be the setting category, and Skyrush has a pretty decent setting. It has, its nice own little area, at least most of the layout kind of in Hersheypark. It's kind of squished between the edge of the park and kind of a road and Candemonium, Founder's Way, and Comet. It does interact with Comet a bit, which is really cool, and it's like right next to like Candemonium's brake run. And it goes over water too, which is nice. But it's overall nothing too special. But it's a pretty decent setting, so it's going to get a 6 out of 10 for the setting category. Alright, so for the final overall score, I'm going to give Skyrush an easy 10 out of 10. This is one of the greatest coasters that I have ever ridden. No question, one of the greatest coasters in the entire world. Skyrush is easily just one of the most intense and aggressive and just out of control coasters out there. Especially for steel coasters, because a lot of the times wooden coasters are very out of control, or especially more than steel coasters, so it's pretty rare to see a steel coaster like this, but this coaster just has insanely intense bank turns, great moments of laterals like the Stangle Dive and the Twisted Hill, some insane moments of airtime, and awesome drop, which I forgot to mention earlier. The drop is my favorite part of the ride. There's lots of great elements on this coaster, but the drop is definitely just the most just out of control, insane moment on this coaster. Which the whole thing is just out of control, but it's definitely my favorite part. Slightly is the drop, but really my only complaints are, I guess, the pacing at the end isn't the best with that final turn into the brakes, and it is a bit short, but honestly, if it was longer, it almost would be too much to handle. Same with rides like Lightning Rod and I-305, I feel like are long enough for their intensity, but what Hersheypark managed to fit into this coaster, it really packs a punch. And I think just the fact it's so compact really just adds to the intensity. I like how it goes over the water too. The color scheme is decent. It's overall a really good ride. It's pretty smooth. I love the wing seats. It's just such a crazy experience, and the restraints are super open, which restraints, by the way, are really not that bad. I think they're fine. But yeah, it's overall just an amazing coaster. It's my current number 3 overall, number 2 steel behind I-305 and Lightning Rod. I think it's a little bit better than El Toro and Steel Vengeance, but it's overall a really good ride, and it should easily be on everyone's bucket list if they've not currently ridden it. And overall, just one of my favorite coasters of all time, one of the most intense coasters out there, and just one of the best. So there you have it, my review of Skyrush at Hersheypark. What do you guys think about this awesome intimate hypercoaster? Make sure to leave those thoughts down below, and make sure to like this video, subscribe for more coaster content coming soon, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.